Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining the webinar. We're just going to be waiting a minute for any late arrivals. Please hold. Thank you. Hello, everybody. My name is Dr. Zak Ali, and I am the Vice President for Revenue Management, Access Rooms. And I'm very excited to welcome you today to this Access Rooms webinar on Introduction to Revenue Management 101. Now, feel free to send any questions you have throughout the presentation. We will do our very best to get back to you directly. I see we have had some hotels who have sent us through some questions which are quite directly related to their own hotels. My presentation today is going to be a general overview and an introduction to revenue management and some key areas within revenue management. I hope after today's webinar, you will be able to understand certain elements that you will be able to apply within your hotel, and this may answer some of your questions. If today any of your questions, then please be known that we will do our very best to get back to you within the very nearby future. So today's webinar agenda. Today we're going to be speaking briefly about conditions of and levels of revenue management, the brief history of revenue management, revenue managers and revenue management systems. Going to be giving you an introduction today to market segmentation and an introduction to demand forecasting. So, revenue management, that's the topic. Now, when should it actually be applied? So, revenue management actually is applied to any business that has a fixed level of conditions where it applies to. So, these conditions that it applies to are listed, as you can see in my presentation here. So, if your establishment has fixed stock of perishable capacity and inventory, then it would be applied to you. Customers who book prior to arrival, the seller, in this case hotel, manages a set of inventory, each which has a fixed price, and the seller, in this case again a hotel, can change the availability of a rate over time. Any business where these conditions are met, whether that be a parking lot, whether that be a restaurant, whether that be an airline, is able to apply revenue management practice. Now, the basic definition of revenue management is to offer the right product to the right customer at the right time, for the right price, and through the right channel. As you can see from this illustration here, this is known as the revenue management cycle. Now, I will just take a couple of minutes to go through what I actually mean in relation directly to a hotel about the revenue management cycle. The right product, in our case, or in a hotel's case, could be the right room type. If your hotel has a restaurant, then it could be the right seating area. To sell to the right customer, so hotels have business guests, leisure guests, group guests, wholesale guests. You have a number of different guests. So it's about selling that right product, so that right room type, to that right customer. At the right time, this is key. The right time can be defined by right season, right day of week. These different elements fall within the right time principle. Right price. Now, the right price is one of the most optimal elements of this cycle. Because if you choose to sell your hotel at a particular price, and that price is too low, then you could potentially have missed opportunities. And too high, most possibly will mean that you will not get the return that you desired or that is profitable to your hotel. And of course, right channel. So with regards to right channels, in today's world, there are plenty of channels that hotels can choose to have their distribution of inventory. It's about getting the right channel to work for you as a hotel to ensure that you are profitable. So you can see through the basic definition, there are many factors to consider in every hotel. Now, the quest and objective is to get the most revenue each night with the most number of rooms filled at the most optimal price. So in revenue management, we have different levels of revenue management, different levels of concepts within revenue management. Successful revenue management requires consistent execution at 3 different levels, as you can see here in my presentation. So we have 3 different levels here known as 3 different pillars. So the first pillar would be segmentation. Market segmentation. I'm going to be speaking about market segmentation a little bit more in detail, but if I can just give you an overview of what that represents here. So no 2 customers are ever the same. You have business customers, you have leisure customers, you have a much wider mix of customers, group, wholesale, etc., etc. Therefore, it is important for hotels to understand those segments and have a clear, defined revenue management strategy, which then helps this in the identification of products and prices targeted to those specific segments that you're looking to achieve. Now, once market segmentation is established, then the next pillar is forecasting, known as demand forecasting. This gives every revenue manager the opportunity to determine what demand is going to occur tomorrow, next week, next year, within 3 years, however far in advance your bookings are producing. Once you have identified the trends and forecasted the expected demand, this would then lead you on to the final pillar known as pricing structure, or in today's world, it's known as price optimization. Now, this is to ensure the right price is charged for the correct product offered and at the right time according to the season and day of week production. Revenue managers develop strategic and tactical decisions based on these 3 pillars and achieve the goal of revenue management to optimize revenue and ensure that no money is being left on the table and no opportunities are missed. So, I'm not going to go into greater details, but I think we should really understand where did this all start from. So just a brief history here in yield management. Back in the 1970s, after the deregulation within the airline industry, airlines started with what was known as yield management, as a method for airlines to control the number of discounted fares. The idea was to move away from a first-come, first-served basis and start protecting the right number of full fare seats for higher paying demand. You can see here on my first figure, the areas under the curve represent all the demand for a flight by price. There is more demand for the flight than available seats. Now, leisure travelers tend to book further in advance and they are more price sensitive. If airlines continue to use the first-come, first-served selling process, as you can see on the left here, the plane would fill with lower rated demand. Now, if the airline saves its seats for higher paying customers who book later, then as you see on the right, more revenue is generated through higher prices charged for the same limited number of seats. Now, this was the basis for the first yield management process. The second figure, as you can see down here, the white area under the curve represents lost revenue opportunity. Now, if you only offer one price, you lose revenue opportunity. There are consumers who would have paid more. Increasing number of prices offered means you can capture more of the revenue opportunity while still holding seats for those who would pay a higher price. Now, sometimes to understand more about revenue management, you have to understand what revenue management is not. Now, this helps to understand more about what it actually is. Here, I'd like to talk about 3 common misconceptions that I hear many times throughout hotels within the industry. Now, at this point, for those hotels that we have on the line here, I want you to start thinking. I think it's a good time for you to start thinking about misconceptions that you hear within your own hotel. There might be some that I'm going to mention now, or there might be others. If you do have others, then please do send them through to us, because I'm very excited to see what are the common misconceptions you have within your own hotel. Now, the first conception that I hear is a full hotel is a profitable hotel. If every room in the hotel is full, therefore I must be doing a good job, and therefore the hotel must be making the most amount of revenue. I'm sure you hear that a lot. Now, this is not the case. Each hotel department is obsessed with occupancy. So 5% may sound like bad occupancy, 95% may sound like good occupancy. However, there are times where higher occupancy will not necessarily be profitable for a hotel, and a high or low occupancy should not be the main KPI for departments in hotels. You will see here in my list, I have mentioned of opportunity costs. Now, it's very important for you to understand what actually opportunity cost is. Now, if I take a group booking of 50 rooms in a 50-bed hotel, then I am filling the hotel. But what I need to understand is, what will I lose if I take that booking? How many customers will not be able to stay in my hotel if I take that group booking? This is known as an opportunity cost. It's not often measured, but is exceptionally important for us to understand. So knowing what we will lose rather than think about what we will gain will help us make better decisions about the bookings that we take. Now, you will see the little man here, my little friend over here. He's balancing ADR and occupancy. These two are common known KPIs within hotels, which around the world, a lot of hotels tend to have a direct focus on. One hotel focus more on pushing occupancy, whilst the other hotels more focused on pushing ADR. Now, I'm sure this does not happen in your hotels, but if it does, then please reach out to us and let us know. But there's plenty of general managers, and I know we have some on the line today, who are obsessed with occupancy. Now, who always ask, did we fill last night? I used to get it all the time. Did we fill? Did we fill? My response was always, well, we can always fill every night if we was to sell at the lowest value. So for example, in any currency you choose, if we sold the rooms at 10 rupees per night, then of course we're going to fill the hotel. That's not going to be an issue. On the flip side of occupancy, we have ADR. Now, we can sell one room at the very highest possible rate. We can get a high ADR. So what we have to actually understand, and we have to ensure, is that we are working to balance both these KPIs, so ADR and occupancy. And therefore, the most important strategic driven KPI for us to measure in our hotel is RevPAR. RevPAR, revenue per available room. So, what are we actually optimizing? In hotels, some hotels have a lot more to offer than other hotels. So some hotels have restaurants, spa facilities, and meeting rooms. Some hotels just have bedrooms, maybe a small restaurant. It's a wide mix. We have to understand, when we talk about optimization, what is the ultimate goal that we are wanting to achieve within our each revenue generating departments. So for that, we have key metrics. I'm going to go through some key metrics for you now. Now, many of us will be familiar with what the goal of optimization within our hotel is. But for those who don't, I shall explain. For rooms, this is RevPAR, revenue per available room. Now, RevPAR can be determined or is determined per day for each day of the year. There are similar measures that can be applied to other revenue generating departments in the hotel. In restaurants, it's RevPAS, revenue per available seat hour. Now, this is based on the seats that are available and measured based on the time the customer is spending on that seat at multiple times of the day. Same for meeting space. This is known as RevPAS, revenue per available space time. This is done per available space time, so where space is the square meters that we have available of the meeting space and time being the day part, whether that be a full day or a half day. Now, when we're talking about optimizing revenue, we are talking about measuring it in these different ways for the different types of revenue generating departments within our hotel. Now, following on from revenue management, we have to ask ourselves a question. What happens if we get different elements of revenue management wrong? So revenue management is a broad subject. It's a wide subject made up of many different elements. Now, one major element or one major aspect within your hotel of revenue management is to do with pricing. Pricing takes up a lot of the time, the effort that is required to ensure that you are achieving and maximizing on your revenue goals. So how does that have an impact if you get it wrong? Well, if you charge too low a price, then generally the case could be something like this, where you would have a full hotel and actually then realize that how much more you could have charged and you've left some money on the table. Now, on the flip side of that, charging too much of a high price would generally lead to a hotel to look like this pretty sight here. Grass going, as no customer wants and can afford to stay there. Therefore, it's important to look at pricing in a greater detailed level, wherever you are able to understand how much demand is actually available at each individual price point, and what is the impact of the change in price having on your demand. So when you go ahead and make a price change, how has that actually impacted your demand? So this is a question as hoteliers that you should be asking yourselves every single day. How has my demand changed when I've made a change in price? That could be at 90 days in advance, that could be at 30 days in advance, whatever your lead times are, based on the business mix that you've got coming into the hotel. Now, the real misconception is just because the hotel is full, it does not mean to say it's profitable. Think about your RevPAR as an overall goal, not just ADR or occupancy. So, where to start? Well, everybody can start with practicing revenue management on a daily basis. You just follow this simple process that I've got displayed here. So how do we start looking at revenue management? So my process here allows hotels to understand where to start from, and this process can be applied in all of your revenue departments within a hotel, so whatever the department is. It starts with data collection. Now, data collection is the most important aspect for revenue management. The data within your system, so your PMS, for example, must be accurate and of good quality. This must include your gathering of all historical and current market trends and data and identifying trends and patterns, including data from competitors and all distribution channels. So as a hotel, you have all those different levels of data points available within your technology that you're using on a day-by-day basis. It's up to you to take that data and ensure that you have it in a certain manner within your technology systems for you then to be able to analyze that data, as I've got on my next point, to make trends, to understand what changes you can make within revenue management. So analysis of data. So once the data is available, we move on to the analysis and analyze all the data captured to understand possible opportunities, threats, trends, everything that you can think of. The next process would be demand forecasting. Now, start to understand the anticipated demand for your hotel minus of any constraints. The next process would be strategy. Identify the right strategy to enable the hotel, different areas in the hotels of opportunity, and establish the correct business mix, length of stay, etc. We had one direct question from a hotel who's on this call today about revenue management and if it's actually going to be only applied to a certain level of business. So the hotelier asked whether it's going to be applied for just online business. This is not the case. You have as I've mentioned to you within my constraints, within my conditions for revenue management, if you have a hotel with a certain level of inventory and you have different business mix coming into your hotel, therefore revenue management practice is applied on all your business across your hotel. The next process is pricing. Identify business mix opportunities where dynamic pricing could be applied to allow for maximum revenue opportunities. And then finally, reporting. Measure and report on impact and change strategies where required. Benchmark performance using key metrics and identify impact of all decisions that you have made. Measuring and reporting is equally important, as is analysis. So we're going to speak about the role of a revenue manager. This is my conception number 2. Conception 2 is that revenue managers only focus on very detailed and fancy spreadsheets. This is not 100% accurate, as revenue managers will be able to tell you. I mean, I started off my own career as a revenue manager, so I can totally support that statement that it's not 100% accurate. A revenue manager's role within your hotel is about being proactive and understanding what is going to happen next year based on demand. They need to be able to make decisions now which will help that demand for the future. Now, also broken down here, you can see are the key characteristics and attributes of a revenue manager. It's about being prepared, able to answer questions on budgeted targets, fact-driven, must be able to use the data that you have from all possible sources. That could be from your PMS, for example, understanding the trends, the booking curves, analyzing this to understand the facts, and then communicate and drive meetings. So, understanding what does this mean for your promotions that you want to apply? What does this mean for your prices, your competition, your market? Being able to really assist other departmental managers to drive effective strategy within the hotel. Because revenue management is a team effort. You all have an individual role to play within your hotel to maximize the overall goal of the hotel, which is to increase revenue and obviously increase profitability. Now, another misconception, my final misconception, is about revenue managers and revenue management systems. Now, I get asked the question a lot. If I get a revenue management system, does that mean that a revenue manager will no longer have a job? Now, I can tell you this is far from the truth. Here, you can see a revenue optimization cycle. And here, you can see other data points. Now, the revenue optimization cycle is what a revenue management system would do for you. This section here is what the revenue manager would do to ensure the revenue management system gives you the correct level of information and decisions that it should be making for you. Now, a human, so a revenue manager, there's a lot of uncertainty in what they do. A revenue manager who does not currently have a revenue management system in place is doing these key elements on a manual basis. So forecasting, optimization, controlling, reporting, all this is happening on a manual basis. So it's great for the revenue manager to have a good understanding of how to actually do each one of these different areas, because then when you go across to a revenue management system, what that does is it tries to reduce the uncertainty that you actually have, and it takes automation and it automates a lot of these different key areas. Therefore, you as a revenue manager have a lot of time to be able to monitor reporting, monitor decisions, and make sure that the system is working correctly for your hotel. So is the information correct that the system is actually receiving? So from a data point of view, it's very important to ensure that your PMS, which is directly related to a revenue management system, has the correct level of data in it. The data needs to be within a certain format, making sure that any bad data is eliminated, otherwise the system can make bad decisions. At the end of the day, the revenue management system needs to have good data coming from you as a hotel for it to give you good decisions. If you feed it bad data, then obviously the decisions are not going to be very optimal for you. So this is something that a revenue manager would be focusing on. Does the system know what I know? Now, the system doesn't know a lot of different points, such as if a volcano was to strike, if an earthquake was to happen, if somebody was playing in a music concert and they were more popular than somebody else. These things affect your demand and affect your price, but the system doesn't actually know that. So the person, the revenue manager, has to tell that to the system. And then finally over here, the science. Revenue management systems are very scientific, and they have very scientific methods of calculating different elements of their sections of their system. So as a revenue manager, it's good for you to know and understand how does a system actually work and how does it calculate for you then to be able to assess and analyze those decisions. So simple question is, and like I said, I used to be a revenue manager before. The answer is no. You can't replace your revenue manager once you get a revenue management system. Obviously, the system is there to help to eliminate a lot of the uncertainty and make the process a lot more smoother for the revenue manager. So, whilst we're talking about systems, I just want to briefly go over some of the benefits of revenue management systems and how they can support revenue managers within your day-to-day decision making. But for that, I want to speak about the optimization cycle that you can see here. Now, as revenue management is based primarily on optimization, here are some benefits of automation within a revenue management system using the cycle. The cycle is made up of 4 core principles, and that is forecasting, optimization, control, and monitor. Now, let's look at forecasting to start off with. The revenue management system takes many different data points, such as historical data, daily booking information from your PMS, and this takes this information in for the forecast of the revenue management system. It combines a lot of the daily data along with the historical trends in line with your property configuration and daily events data, and produces a day-by-day market segmentation demand forecast for you. Now, most revenue managers update forecasts once per week for a period of 90 days. And this is where one of the benefits of a forecast automation sits, along with the fact that the system looks at many different data points, making it more effective for you. Now, what are the benefits? Well, not having an up-to-date forecast can lead to incorrect pricing and strategies that do not materialize well for your hotel. So that's where the benefits are for forecast automation. Now, if we move on to optimize or optimization, this is a section within a revenue management system which is actually not visible to the user. This is where the science actually happens. The system will look at the forecast and other decision variables and then decide which rates, room types should be available to the customers coming to that hotel. What is the value of demand within your hotel? And based on stay patterns, what should be the best form of inventory control that you actually should apply? So if we look at this here, we can see how and where does a revenue management system optimize your hotel. On peak days, the revenue management system will help you drive revenue within your optimal market mix decisions, as well as bar and group pricing. On your high occupancy days, the revenue management system will help you drive revenue and increase occupancy through accurate overbooking to ensure you are selling to capacity. Where possible, you are not missing out on any high impact opportunity days. Now, length of stay controls also help you drive revenue and room nights over those quieter days, and on all days, no matter the current forecasted occupancy, a revenue management system can help you to set the correct and most optimal bar, as well as group pricing decisions. So, control. The outcome of an optimization, so the outcome after this section here, is control. The control optimization is produced, and the controls that are produced are best available rates, the last room value to help you with your business mix, overbooking decisions to get you close to sellout, and pricing and displacement for your group business. With time saved due to the previous steps, you now have time to monitor and assess your performance, and this can be conducted through reporting or alert functions that are available generally within a revenue management system. So, what I'd like to move on to now is one of my favorite subjects, which is market segmentation. So how should you actually understand market segmentation? So if you're thinking about market segmentation right now, you have to understand market segmentation is the base. It's the blood that flows through your hotel, and your decisions are all made based on market segmentation. So it's vitally important for you to get market segmentation as accurate as possible through your revenue management practice on a daily basis, and the fact that your segmentation should be reviewed annually as and when you make new budgets. So because market segmentation is so important, I just want you to understand briefly how this came into the hotel industry. So using customer segmentation and inventory controls to manage revenue is very common in many industries, including the hotel industry. Now, the airline industry had a strong influence in their use today. And you can understand this given the fact that you will find a lot of changes in airfares, but this is actually a relatively new phenomenon. So how did airlines actually price? Well, they began with segmenting customers. So if we oversimplify, we could assume that there are two different types of customers seeking to travel. Business customers traveling for work-related issues, and leisure travelers who are just traveling for holidays. The typical business traveler is willing to pay a higher price in exchange of flexibility and being able to book a seat or a hotel room at the last minute. They're also willing to pay a higher price to cancel their booking if their plans change, whilst the vacation traveler is willing to give up some flexibility for the sake of a more inexpensive product. Now, the demand from the price-sensitive customer tends to come before the demand from a business customer. But the question is, with multiple price points and demand for more expensive inventory arriving after price-sensitive demand, the airlines had to determine how many seats they should sell to the early price-sensitive customers and how many they should protect for late full-fare customers. This is a picture that we have to observe and understand because we practice it in hotels today. Now, if too few seats were protected, the airline will lose the full fare revenue. And if too many are protected, flights would leave empty, with empty seats. So market segmentation in hotels can help to understand the demand from the business mix of a hotel or market and enables hotels to apply the most optimal pricing strategy to its product. Market segmentation can also allow hotels to correctly allocate inventory to different types of businesses or business, whether that is a transient or whether it is a group, somebody who makes a last-minute booking or somebody who makes a booking 1 to 2 years in advance. Hence the reason why, as I mentioned before, market segmentation, revenue management doesn't apply only to one level of your business coming into the hotel. It applies to the full business mix levels that you've got coming in. So what is market segmentation? Well, segmentation involves subdividing markets, channels, or customers into groups with different needs. Now, some positive drivers for good market segmentation include things like targeted sales and marketing activities. So by understanding the net profitability of each segment, you can ensure that the focus of sales and marketing efforts will be on attracting the right business at the right time. Well, it also helps with increasing guest retention levels, because once you understand what your customers actually want, you can make sure that your operational delivery is in line with what your customer expectations are, and this then allows you to bring back more customers. Targeted pricing. As each segment responds differently to price propositions, so price sensitivity is different, accurate segmentation will assist in the pricing process, so minimizing the risk of over and under pricing through dilution or cannibalization. Increased market share of the desired segment. Now, I know a lot of hotels tend to have difficulty in keeping hold or growing a specific market share that they actually wish to grow. Accurate market segmentation will actually assist you in this. So accurate market segmentation allows you to focus on growing your desired market segment through matching expectations from an operational level and focusing on secondary segments during needs of distress periods. This will then allow you to move away from the unprofitable, hard-to-reach segments, or those segments that have a high acquisition cost. The ultimate aim of accurate segmentation is improved efficiencies, leading to enhanced profits and greater opportunities. Now, obviously, there's a flip side to segmentation, and obviously, bad segmentation can lead to bad decisions. So having segmentation that is not working for you can lead to inaccurate forecasting, so not knowing who's coming through your hotel doors. Ineffective pricing strategies. Basically, it means you're going to be selling either too high, too low compared to what that business mix within that segment can actually take in. Incorrect sales and marketing activities. So your sales guys might be focusing on something completely different to what you actually need to be focusing on to get that business into your hotel. And obviously there is a high level of acquisition cost involved there, so it's not going to be overly profitable for you. And strategy impact. The combination of these three top points will lead to a longer term strategy impact if the organization is not clearly focused and delivering the optimal segment mix. So it's about getting the right level of business mix within your hotel. Now you can actually do that from the minute you come off the call today. Because how do you actually do that? Well, you take your data that you have and you put it into different, you take these four aspects that I'm going to talk about now, and you start benchmarking it against these points. So measurability, you look at the segment, you look at the data and you say, okay, the business that I want to actually focus on, is it measurable? Can you measure the visits of a certain segment to your particular area? That's the first question to ask. Actionability. The product offering and price, is that interesting enough for that particular segment to buy from you? Or are they just going to go and buy from a different hotel, one of your competitors, because what they're offering is more relevant to what that customer from that segment actually wants? The million-dollar question, can they actually book a room at your hotel? Now, how many times have you actually gone on to channels that you have registered with and seen if you can actually make a reservation within your own hotel? Now, I can tell you there are many occasions where revenue managers believe that they're selling accurately or they're selling on a particular channel, but they haven't gone ahead and checked it. So making sure that you follow the customer journey is another point that you can do from today. Accessibility. Can you reach that segment? This is a very, very important question. Can you reach that segment? A lot of hotels tend to wish to achieve business that they just physically have no distribution platforms where they can go and actually achieve that business from. So if you have a particular desire for, I don't know, say an international market, which you can't directly impact on getting to your hotel, are you set up with the correct partner who can bring that business to you? Substantiation. And finally, is this segment large enough to be viable? Again, talking about cost of acquisition. Is this segment large enough to give you the value to justify the cost that you will have in attracting that business? Now, key considerations of segmentation include some elements here. So you have price and buying behavior. Segmenting customers on buying behavior can be useful because you can offer them different things, which mean you can segment by price. Key question to actually ask yourself is this person traveling for business or for pleasure? And base your decisions on their requirements and their behaviors based on that question. Are they price sensitive? What products are they buying? Do they have ancillary spend? And are they routine guests? These are all behavioral questions that you can actually be asking yourself to determine the correct level of segmentation. And then you need to understand, is behavior controlling price or does price control behavior? Now, there's a situation where if you don't align your price with market and consumer behaviors, your value perception will be off. Your value perception will be off what that market perceives it as, and you will have either an over or underpriced hotel for the perceived value. Now, maintaining brand image is important when you are considering behavior and price. Distribution. How are we getting to hotels? How are we getting the people to come to our hotels? What strategies can we do to approach these mix of channels? So you need to evaluate your needs as a property. What distribution channels fill your property best? Remember, what your needs are today does not mean it's where you will stay forever. You need to develop a strategy of where to be today and how to get to and where you want to go within the next 3 to 5 years. Channel and cost is a result of distribution where looking at channels. Good acquisition is minimizing costs. So do you know your cost of acquisition? That's a question that you should be asking yourself every day. What is my acquisition cost for this particular channel? And now I'm not just talking about commission costs. You know, if you have business coming through a GDS platform, it's more than just a commission cost. So you need to understand what the breakdown of that actual cost is. Have the costs been increasing? How's that having an impact on my profits? Are my profits decreasing and my cost increasing? These are questions that you should be asking. And then contribution. What is the level of contribution that customer is providing to your hotel? So such as average spend. What is the average spend? Now within your PMSs, you generally have good data there at different transactional level points. And here are some common behavioral variables that you can have a look at as of today, which will help you identify behaviors, which then you can map back to segmentation. So product type, spend, rate, distribution channel, day of week, these are all different behaviors that if you take now and use based on your data that you have, you will be able to come up with a good market segmentation strategy. And let's talk about forecasting. So, demand forecasting. Of all the different types of forecasts that are critical to a hotel, demand forecasting is the most crucial. Now, ironically, this is the forecast that is most often not utilized, and sometimes it's not even understood. Demand forecasting is the basis of all pricing and market strategies. Inaccurate forecasts can lead to poor decision-making in inventory control, pricing, and all distribution strategies. Now, one thing that is important to remember is that forecasting is an art. Therefore, it can and will take practice, and over time, if you follow the proper procedure and apply the level of detail that forecasting requires and deserves, then the comfort level and accuracy will most definitely improve. Some factors affecting forecasting. Now, you have different factors that affect demand forecast. Now, this could be a variety of factors, and I have mentioned just some key factors here. Factors can be categorized as either internal or external factors. External factors are those that the hotel have no control over. So, such as macroeconomics, industry competition, what changes you're having, lack of external know-how, lack of external data, and the environmental issues. These can all have external factors effect on your demand forecast. Internal factors happen within the hotel and can also include strategy changes, operational changes, tracking resources, and lack of good data. So why do we actually forecast? Now, there are different forecasts that should be put together for every hotel, and each forecast has a different objective. We have an operational forecast. Operational forecast is there to manage staffing, departmental costs, items directly related to personnel and operational delivery of the hotel. A demand forecast and a revenue forecast is mainly for revenue managers. Now, this can be used to set sales and marketing plans, also pricing policies, inventory controls, everything that a revenue manager would need to do. This would be based off your demand and revenue forecast. And then a strategic forecast is there to support the demand and revenue forecast, which would then basically allow you to set strategic goals to ensure that you are having a positive impact on the demand that you need to. So an example would be if you are forecasting demand within a period where it's looking a little bit quieter. So let's just say, for example, the month of October is looking a little bit quieter. You have that information within your demand and revenue forecast. And then from a strategic point of view, you have to understand, right, what do we need to do now to have an impact of the demand within October? And, maybe we need to have a promotion in place by May. We need to see what the production is by July. If no changes are made, we need to then make another change to what we have at the moment. Who are we going to target? Items like that, that falls under a strategic forecast. Now, some facts for you to remember whilst you're doing demand forecasting. There's an assumption that past patterns repeat itself into the future. Now, this isn't always correct. So don't ever always understand that, okay, whatever has happened into the past is actually going to happen again in the future, because we have different booking trends in the future, and therefore directly just assuming that you're going to have exactly the same trends as history is going to cause your forecasting to be out. Forecasts are rarely perfect. Now, the science of art of forecasting is trying to minimize but not eliminate forecast errors. So forecast does have errors, hence the reason why it is called a forecast and not a budget. But it's about trying to minimize, but obviously not 100% eliminate, because that which would not happen, your forecast errors. Now, another very obvious fact is that forecasts over a shorter period tend to be more accurate than forecasts over longer periods. So for you to start doing your forecasting today, if you already haven't, you need to understand what actually flows into a forecast. So information you need to choose to create a forecast, these include changes. So new hotels, economic levels that should be understood at a top level. And at a hotel level, you would look at historical patterns, segmentation, booking pace, future patterns. These are just some elements that I'm mentioning to you now, which will allow you to start off producing a good demand forecast. Now, for the group segment, group wash factors is very important to observe, and that information is generally available through your PMSs. Revenue managers should observe both constrained and unconstrained demand. Now, what is the difference between constrained and unconstrained demand? I get asked this question a lot, so I think it's probably best that I clarify it. Now, you can see here, this is my hotel. And many hotels today are just observing demand on the level they can accommodate based on the inventory of their hotel. So the inventory of my hotel, the capacity of my hotel is here. If we take a look at this example, here I'm looking at rooms sold for transient segment on a Monday, and that is by day, by segment. This is the capacity of the hotel, as I've mentioned, and the number of days to arrival are down here. Now, if we look at one of our forecasting variable, which is the last year trend, we can see from around 30 days out, we didn't really have much demand, and it didn't really increase much around 14 days out. But then around 7 days, you can see that the pace picked up greatly and we started to see more bookings confirming, and we ended up with 100% hotel on the day of arrival. So as you can see in the last year trend, that's what I'm referring to. So let's say today we are here at 7 days out before our arrival day, and this is this year's trend. Based on this, we can see that we are pacing ahead of last year's trend. So our logical conclusion would be, well, what's on the books now compared to last year, and therefore this should be this year. We can see, based on this trend line, if I was to create a forecast based on last year's trend line, we can see that we're actually going to end up above the capacity line of the hotel, and that's what we call an unconstrained demand forecast. We are not limited by the capacity of the hotel. We are doing a demand forecast based on the true demand, and it is not just based on last year, it is based on different trends, business mix, and immediate changes. So for you to start to put together your forecast and to create your demand forecast, the simplest way to do it is to have a look at dividing it based on a short-term pace-based forecast and a long-term forecast based on these variables here. Now, pace is referred to the period of the reservation that you currently have on the books in comparison to the same period in the past, for example, last year. Now, a short-term forecast can be split into group and transient, and this would be based on current business on the books, which is just over here, you can see here, plus pickup and pace for the transient segments, and pickup and wash for the group segments. Now, this will allow for a more accurate forecast if you basically take into consideration the wash factor when you're looking at a group. And then this will help you achieve your demand forecast. Now, a long-range forecast tends to be more or less accurate due to the uncertainty and lack of committed business on the books. Long-range forecasts would generally be based on historical performance, based on the same period, pickup, new trends this year, special events, changes in supply and demand. You can see here through my graphic, the larger the graphic is, the more weight you would give to that element within a demand forecast on a long-term basis. So for example, on a long term here, you would look at more historical business, future special events, then less pickup and less business on the books. So some key takeaways for you. Collect and analyze the right data at a granular level. Ensure your market segmentation is correctly defined and evaluated every year. Choose the right business mix that is going to add true value and profitability to your hotel. Don't just focus on one level of business that you've got coming in. Have a look at what is going to be the more profitable business for you. So maybe 30% of the business coming from transient, 40% coming from a different segment. That's what's going to make you the most profitable hotel. That's what you should be focusing on. Start to create a demand forecast if you already haven't, and try and create a demand forecast based on unconstrained demand using the multiple variables that I've already mentioned to you. And then focus on building a revenue management culture within your hotel to really achieve your potential as a full hotel from a total hotel revenue management point of view. So thank you very much for today. I hope it's been informative for you. If you do have any questions about anything that you've seen today, or if you have any general revenue management related questions, then feel free to send us a message and somebody, either myself or one of my colleagues, will respond to you. And thank you again. Have a great day. Bye-bye.